President Cyril Ramaphosa's lawyer has confirmed that they will challenge the findings from an independent panel report on the Phala Phala farm theft. It follows findings from that report that there is a case for the president to answer, and that tomorrow Parliament should in fact go ahead with a vote on his possible impeachment. The ANC, we're hearing from an NWC National Working Committee meeting, has resolved not to support the adoption of that report. In the last few minutes, the EFF leader Julius Malema has said his party intends to expose President Ramaphosa as a money launderer. Ramaphosa also in the last hour excused himself from a National Executive Committee meeting of the ANC where his future and the Phala Phala report are due to be discussed. Let's talk about all of this now. Bring in the Executive Secretary at the Centre for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, Lawson Naidoo. Lawson, welcome back to the show. So we spoke to you last week just as we were getting first detail from this report, and I wonder, between then and now, has the President's position become more untenable?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I don't think it's become more untenable, and there are a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, the report of the independent panel is a guide or a recommendation to the National Assembly. It's not a binding report, and therefore the National Assembly can, when it meets tomorrow, either agree to accept or reject that report. And secondly, as has become evident from a proper study of that report, there are grounds for a legal challenge against the veracity of that report, which challenge we believe that the President is now taking up. So I think, the issue is that the report is subject to some contestation, and there is no provision either in the Constitution nor in the rules of Parliament for the President to step aside or resign on the basis of this non-binding recommendation of the independent panel.
So now that we've got this indication, confirmation in fact, that the President intends indeed to approach the highest court in the country for a review of this report, does that have any implications in law for what Parliament will be seized with tomorrow? Can they indeed go ahead with the adoption of a report that's already facing some challenge?
Well, it's possible that Parliament could go ahead. I think it would be appropriate for them to consider the report and take a decision on it. And if they do that and they reject the report, then any legal action that the President might be bringing would then become moot, and there would be no need for a court to determine the legal challenge brought by the President if Parliament simply dismisses the panel's report and terminates the impeachment process.
As you were saying earlier, so there's no legal requirement in the country's law for the President to step aside while all of this is going on in Parliament and while the review process is going to be launched from his side. But is it in good conscience, is it wise for him to remain in post in the interim while all of this is going on? When you look at the tumultuous period with the Nkandla matter, for instance, and what Julius Malema was saying a short time ago is that, in fact, this perhaps, or in fact, according to him, is worse than Nkandla.
Well, there's nothing that has been proven against President Ramaphosa, so I do think it is premature to call for him to resign or to step aside. There is no legal basis for that to happen. And I think, the continuation of stability in the country and a stable government is important at this point in time. Should Parliament, however, decide tomorrow to proceed to establish an ad hoc committee to further investigate the complaints against the President, then I think the position of the President would then change. But as we speak now, I don't think that is the case.
If the ANC does indeed tomorrow block the adoption of this independent panel report, does that rob the country of an opportunity of parliamentary accountability where the President is concerned?
Well, no, not necessarily, because we know that there are a number of other investigations that are ongoing by the Hawks, the Reserve Bank, the Public Protector, and so on. And when the outcomes of those investigations are made public, we certainly hope will be sooner rather than later, then Parliament would certainly be within its powers to revisit this issue of the conduct of the President in the light of those more comprehensive investigative reports.
We're dealing at the moment, as we're saying, with a fast-developing situation. From when the report was released, the president saying he was basically reading through it and considering his legal options. Now you've got the opposition party saying, well, they're going to band together tomorrow to try and push through the issue of the impeachment process, right? Today, EFF leader Julius Malema is telling us that they've also, in fact, come together and agreed that what they want to ask the DA to do as the main opposition party in Parliament is to also put forward a motion of no confidence. In terms of law, would that add anything to the process when you consider just the gravity of impeachment alone?
Yeah, well, there would be nothing to prevent either the Democratic Alliance or the Economic Freedom Fighters from bringing a motion of no confidence in the president. But we must also be aware that tomorrow is the last sitting of the National Assembly for 2022. The House will adjourn tomorrow and only return in the new year after the holiday break. So any motion of no confidence will only be considered at the earliest at some point in the new year.
With that in mind, then, what would a prolonged Phala Phala saga involving the president, parliament, the opposition parties mean, not just for the presidency, but the country?
Well, indeed, I think it's important that this matter gets resolved as soon as possible. And as I've said, it's to be hoped that the law enforcement agencies and other state organs that are investigating are able to conclude their investigations as soon as possible, so we can begin to unravel exactly what happened, what the consequences and implications are, and then deal with them from that point. At the moment, we have a report of an independent panel, which was constrained by the information that was placed before it, and has come up with a set of findings, that may or may not hold water in the longer term.
But fair to say, is it not, Lawson, at this point, that given this intention to take this report from the independent parliamentary panel on review, it is perhaps the clearest indication that should, for example, the investigations by the Public Protector, the Reserve Bank, SARS and the rest of it, should they also make adverse findings against Ramaphosa, he's likely to challenge those too?
Well, that would very much depend on the basis on which those investigations reach any conclusions. And as I say, this independent panel was really constrained by the kind of information that was placed before it, which was, had not been confirmed in any way. Much of it was hearsay evidence, and so on. So that is the basis on which I believe that the president is now challenging that panel report. Obviously, the outcomes of any other investigations would be based on other sorts of evidence that may well have been corroborated and so on. So the president's position may well be different as a result of those investigations.
Lawson Naidoo, good to speak to you. Thank you.